Hello everyone, and welcome to this dungeon editor tutorial for Legend of Grimrock 2. In this tutorial we're going to take a look at elevations and how we can raise and lower the floors of our dungeon. If you watched the previous tutorial, this is where I left off. I had this big room right over here, and you can see that this room is just standard. The floor is right over here, and we got the ceiling just one grid space above us. The way we draw elevations is actually quite simple. We just go into the brush tab, and we can see all the tile set brushes that we have here. I'm working with the dungeon floor at the moment, and this is where we control the elevations. So this is where I set the elevation of the floor and the elevation of the ceiling. The elevations, they start at -7 and they can go all the way up to +7. But of course the ceiling always need to be at least one space above the floor if we are going to have a walkable space for our party or our champions. So if for example, if I'm going to raise the ceiling of this room here, I'm going to raise it up by 4. I would simply have the dungeon floor selected. I would have the floor where it is. It's now at 0, and I'm going to continue to have it at 0. But the ceiling, I want to raise that up to 4. So what I can do now is I can simply paint here around me, and you can see that I'm creating this this broken line, or this dotted line here in the middle of the room. And if I refresh the scene, you can see that the ceiling has risen quite above me, but it has only done so in the area where I have drawn. So in the outlying section of the room, the ceiling is still where it was, and the broken line is showing me where the elevation has taken place. So let's bring this down again to maybe 2, and you can see if I draw something here, the broken line is telling me that there's a difference between the height of this ceiling and this ceiling and that one. The same applies to this as I showed you in the previous tutorial, that we can shift click. So I can shift click here and just change the whole room. So now all the room has the ceiling height of 2. So if I refresh this, you can see that we have two squares before I hit the ceiling. So the same applies to the floor. If I want to raise the floor, I can easily do so by simply bringing the floor up by 1, and the ceiling will stay at 2. So if I paint this right here, you can see that the color of the tile itself changes. It becomes lighter, so it's easier for me to see where the elevation is taking place. So if I refresh the editor here, you can see that I have raised the floor, and when I raised the floor, the tile map automatically drew the dungeon walls for me. So now that we have this, we got our first elevation. Of course the party needs some way to getting up there, and this is where the ladder comes into play. And if I place a ladder right here and refresh, it will spawn into existence, and now the party can climb up this ladder, and we are on top of our first elevation. So quite nice, and this is quite easy to do. So for example, if we go back into the brushes, and I still have the dungeon floor selected, I'm gonna raise the ceiling to its maximum of 7, and just shift click here, and that means I didn't raise it over here, so let's do it again. Going to raise the ceiling to 7, and this like this. So now we have this huge room is extending quite far above us, and we still have our first floor elevation right over here, and this allows us to create some steps. And if I raise this again to 2 and just continue on my way, you can see that now I've continued creating this these elevations. I'm gonna select the letter. I'm gonna hit Ctrl C and Ctrl V just to copy paste it. I'm going to copy paste it, and we're gonna place it right here, and I'm gonna show you what happens. I'm going to hit F5, and we can see that the letter is in the incorrect position because I copied this one, and this one, as you can see, it has now an X and a Y position. It also has a height position, and since the floor I was on was at 0, I placed it at 0, but when I copy paste this one over, it stayed at 0, which means it's now inside of the elevation, and this N is therefore useless to the party. This also happens if I simply place the letter manually right here and hit refresh, because objects I place into the map, they get placed by default at the 0 elevation, but that's an easy fix. I can just have it selected, and I will click plus on my numpad, and it will get raised up by 1. If I click plus again within, oops, sorry, plus again, I will raise it to 2, 3, 4, and the minus will bring it down. Of course I can just type this in manually also if I want to, but it's a good thing to know that in the preferences you can assign key selections to raise something and lower something, and that becomes quite useful once you start creating your own dungeons. So now that we have this letter in the correct place, I can climb up to the next one, and now I'm on the 2nd floor, 0 floor being the ground, and we can continue up on our way, raising the floor by 1, having the ceiling stay at the same place, just like this. We have another one. I bring the letter, copy paste the letter to here, raise it up by to 2, and if we fall off, everybody got hurt, and this guy even has some broken feet, so we simply press H button to heal that. But you can see how this works, and how we can create the elevations of our room. I'm going to select the torch right here, and I'm going to multiply that. The same thing applies. It's in the wrong height, and I'm going to bring it up by 2, and there we have the torch. So and like I showed you in the beginning, we can also go to minus. So for example, if I have the ceiling still at 7, but if I bring this down to -1 and I paint something, like if I'm going to paint that 3x3 here, -1, you can see that those tiles are more dark than the rest, showing me that this is where it drops down. And you can see right here, if I zoom in, you can see that the tiles get lighter in color as higher I get up. So the modder who is creating the dungeon, he can easily more see, where the elevation is taking place. But if we refresh this, go to full screen, you can see that now I have created a elevation that goes beneath the ground floor. And of course, if I jump into this, I'm now stuck here until I copy paste this letter. And of course I need to bring that down to -1 as well in order for it to be in the correct place. So now the party can climb up. Uh, this is pretty much it. This is like I said, quite easy to do, and people will be fast to master this. There are some gotchas, you know, like some things that you will run into, and for example, if I put this back to the ground floor and I'm going to bring this down to, let's say, the ceiling of 1, and I draw a corridor here. Now you can see that I have drawn a corridor that goes out from this room. I cannot draw the corridor into the room again, you know, because basically I'm changing the floor height and the ceiling height. So as soon as I draw into this grid again, I'm simply changing the floor and the ceiling of this tile. So let's just do that to show you what happens. And you can see that the corridor now goes into the room again, but it did not create a tunnel underneath it or anything like that. And also because I had the ceiling to 1, I brought the whole ceiling down to the elevation of 1. So now this looks kind of weird, and so going out of the floor and back into it, it can be done, but in order to do that, we need to get tricky, and like this. Now we are back where it used to be, and if I go into the corridor, and you can see it from the other side, you can see that I simply come upon this wall here. But like I said, we can get tricky, and that's what all good modders are for. They are to break the boundaries. So for example, if we wanted to create something like that, we need to create that manually by hand. What that means is I would have to put the floor to 0 and have the ceiling at 7. Take this away like this, and now we have a stair that's just standing in one direction. But I will of course just go here and choose dungeon wall, and I will place a wall here. And what happened is the wall of course got placed in the wrong height. The wall is at 0, like all objects come into the dungeon, and I want to raise the wall by 1, and I want to turn it around so it's facing the correct way, like this. So now I have the wall in place, and I'm going to copy paste this wall like this, and now I need to place a pillar, dungeon pillar, place it here. Remember, it's in the 0 elevation, bring it up by 1. Now we have the pillar in place. So if I walk over here, we have this thing over here, but I want to bring the dungeon floor. I'm gonna place a dungeon floor here and bring that up as well. Refresh the dungeon. No, of course I need to bring it a little bit higher, like this. Climb the stairs, climb the stairs. Now we have a platform over here, but what happens is when I walk onto the platform, I will fall down. And the reason why I do that is because according to the engine, the floor is at 0, so we will have to get even trickier and choose something like an invisible platform. Put that over here and raise that to 2. So now we have an invisible platform in place. So when I walk onto this, I will not fall down. So now we have a corridor. And of course ceiling. I forgot the ceiling. We need a ceiling here. So let's do dungeon. Dungeon ceiling. Place it here. And it needs to be 1. No, it needs to be 0. Like this. So now we have a ceiling here. We have a lot of ceilings. Maybe I choose the wrong one for this particular. But I actually like it. It's kind of cool. No, it has a flaw, but you get the idea. You get the idea that we can place this manually, and we can overcome the limitations of the clipping of the engine where the players and the party falls down. So you can create some things. You can you know, go out and you can come back in, and you can go under and over yourselves and stuff like that. But you cannot draw it directly here. But like I said, with some trickiness, most things are possible. So this is the elevation part. Quite easy, and like I said before, -7 +7. That of course means that we can start the level by you know, starting the floor at -7, and then we can have, you know, quite a ways to go up. So you can create huge towers and stuff like that. There's one thing or limitation that I want to point out, and that has to do with pits and elevations. Just so you know about them, is that if I place a pit here, let's go dungeon pit, place it right here. I'm gonna create another level, and I'm gonna go into this in my next tutorial, so just stay with me for what I'm about to do here. These are the coordinates, or the coordinate system, and I will explain that in my next tutorial. So right here we have the pit, and I want to create a room for the pit. I place this floor is placed directly beneath this one, and if I fall into the pit, I will fall into this area over here. But I have drawn the floor at 0 and the ceiling at 7. The pit is stationed at 0, so this will work. I mean, if I fall into the pit, I fall into the next area. But as you saw, I did not start the fall at 7. In fact, I started the fall just between the 2nd and the 3rd elevation, and that's the limitation I'm talking about. Pits will always deliver you to the 2nd or 3rd elevation. What that means is the floor here is at 0. If I would raise this floor to, let's say, 2 and fall into again, we get this. Now the party is stuck and I am unable to move. That's because the pit placed me directly where the floor is. So that's a limitation that you need to be aware of, that if we are going to have pits in our dungeon, they have to deliver the party onto a floor that's either at 0 or at 1. So perhaps they will change this later, or maybe they will do something, but for now we can place the pit at +1 or +2 or +3 or doesn't matter. We can place the pit, but the pit will always deliver the party onto the next floor between the 2nd and the 3rd elevation. So for example, if I bring this down by 1, we will have a functioning dungeon again, but the fall will be quite short, because now the floor is at 1. But if I wanted to be really mean, I could bring the floor all the way down to -7, and if I play this, I will suddenly break everybody's feet. Oh yes. So there you have it. For now, that's the only limitation I know about with pits, is that where they place the body when it comes falling down from the floor above. But this is elevations. Quite easy, quite handy, and we have a lot of space to work with. So I think that's it for now. In my next tutorial I'm going to go into this. I'm going to go into the coordinate system and how maps get placed in the coordinate system. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching.